So in this video, Kyle Kulinski is going to argue that it's tyranny for the government not to force a private business to serve someone they don't want to. Let's get right into it.
There's an anti-gay baker from Colorado by the name of Robert N. Spencer.
Actually, I'm pretty sure the baker's name is Jack Phillips, unless there's someone else involved in the case that I'm not aware of. If you can't even get basic facts like the name of the person involved in the case right, then I'm not too confident about the rest of this video.
He refused to sell a cake to a gay couple that was getting married.
It's false.
So the video just started, and we already have some blatant misinformation. Jack Phillips didn't refuse to sell the couple a cake. Rather, he refused to custom make a cake for their gay wedding. Mr. Phillips made it clear that he was willing to sell the couple any pre-made cake that the bakery offers. However, as someone who doesn't believe in same-sex marriage, he simply didn't feel comfortable making a cake for their wedding.
And he said it was because of his religion. So a court just recently ruled against him, and they said, no, that's not a sufficient reason to not serve them.
And that is a court ruling that I completely disagree with. In a free country with free speech, and more importantly, free exercise of religion, no one should ever be forced to create art that depicts a message they disagree with, especially if it goes against their religious beliefs.
And you would have had to serve them.
Regardless of the reason for it, it's not legitimate to force someone to provide a good or service that they don't want to against their will. Since everyone owns themselves, they by extension own their time and labor and therefore have the right to decide who to provide it to. This is the basis behind free association. To force someone to provide labor they don't want to against their will is the literal definition of slavery.
So Fox News had this guy on, and they're going to talk to him like he's some sort of victim and some sort of hero.
I shouldn't have to state the bleeding obvious, but if someone is being threatened with violence for not providing labor they don't want to against their will, then yeah, that kind of makes them a victim.
Jack, certainly this seems to be a ruling not in your favor, according to your beliefs here. This couple came in, asked you to make a cake for their wedding. Your response was what?
When they came in, they said that they wanted to get a wedding cake, and after introductions, and one of them said they were looking at weddings, the other one said that they were getting the wedding cake for their wedding. And I replied that I don't do cakes for same-sex weddings.
Yeah, and since it's his bakery, his property, his ingredients, his time and labor, he's more than within his rights to implement such a policy.
And in shock, they both said, what? And I offered to do other cakes, birthday cakes, shower cakes, sell them cookies and brownies. I just don't do same-sex weddings.
So there you have it. The proof is in the pudding. Kyle Kulinski is talking out his ass when he says the couple were denied service simply because they were gay.
At which time they got up and left.
In a sane, rational world, the story would have ended here. The couple would have simply found a different bakery to make their cake. But no, we can't keep things simple and take the moral high road. No, let's try and blow this up into a big deal and get our petty revenge against a small business owner. The people who sue these bakeries really piss me the fuck off.
And then there were a ton of protests, phone calls, 500 people outside.
And of course, people can't simply let this guy operate his business and make cakes in peace. No, they have to harass the shit out of him as well. You guys do realize that you're just making yourselves look like a bunch of spoiled, entitled brats when you do this, right?
Did you believe that you were operating within your constitutional right?
I hadn't thought about it at the time, but looking back, yes, I do believe that the United States Constitution as well as the Colorado Constitution both protect my right to freely practice my religious beliefs while I'm at my work.
In my mind, there's no doubt as to whether or not Jack Phillips' decision not to make the cake is protected by the Constitution. This is very clearly a case of free speech and free exercise of religion. Compelling someone to create a piece of art that depicts a message they disagree with, especially if that message goes against their religious beliefs, is absolutely a violation of that person's free speech rights, as well as treating them like a slave because, as I mentioned before, it's compelled servitude.
And ultimately, even though things have gotten kind of harsh for you there in terms of response,
I gotta give huge props to Jack Phillips for not compromising his principles, even slightly, in the face of all the backlash he's receiving. It takes a lot of balls to do that.
have you changed your stance at all? And why is it important for you to have a business and not have to abandon your personal religious beliefs just to make a buck?
So this is an argument I've heard before, that business owners are somehow obligated to give up their free speech rights in order to have the right to operate a business. This seems pretty arbitrary to me. Why should business owners have to give up their rights just to own a business? I mean, aren't they people just like the rest of us? How is owning a business different from any other profession that people choose to go into? You don't have to give up your rights to go into any other profession. Why should being a business owner be any different?
Well, for one thing, I'm not there just to make a buck. I do what I do because I love doing what I do, and it's, I believe, what God's designed for me to do.
Awesome. Then I say keep fighting for it, man.
But I don't believe that I need to drop my religious convictions at any time for any reason.
I completely agree. He shouldn't have to. Because, like I said before, this is a free country with not only free speech, but more importantly, free exercise of religion.
Nicole, now, but the judge felt otherwise. Can you explain what the judge said?
You know that judge was probably some kind of egotistical liberal bitch. Like, what kind of power-happy authoritarian do you have to be to tell someone no? You have to provide labor to someone you don't want to against your will.
And then where this stands, I mean, this certainly could set precedent in terms of private businesses having to completely shed what they believe personally to offer something to a consumer, correct?
Absolutely correct. Imagine no one wanting to become a baker anymore out of fear of being sued for their religious beliefs.
Indeed. The important thing for your viewers to know is that the First Amendment, indeed the U.S. Constitution, gives every American the right to live and work according to their beliefs. If the government can force you to violate your beliefs under the threat of a jail sentence, there's really no freedom they can't take away, Elizabeth.
This is completely true. If the government decides that it's legitimate for it to compel speech or compel servitude, that opens up a whole Pandora's box of all kinds of tyranny and authoritarianism.
Jack, are you willing to go to jail for your religious beliefs here?
You know, if that's what it takes, I guess I would be.
Jail for speech. Not even just a fine, but actual fucking jail for speech. That's some North Korean bullshit right there.
I don't plan on giving up my religious beliefs. It's not just like I've chosen this team or that team. This is who I am. It's what I believe.
There wasn't any point in this process where you said, you know what, I'm going to make I'll make you 2 cakes, okay? Just leave me be. That
No.
never crossed your mind?
Once again, Jack's ability to stick to his principles in spite of all the backlash is very commendable. It's tempting just to say, fuck it, I'll make the cake if you leave me alone. But as Jack will explain here in a moment, it's not just about the cake, there's higher principles at stake.
No, it's not just making the cake or the attention or getting out of from under pressure. I don't feel that I should participate in their wedding. And when I do a cake, I feel like I'm participating in the ceremony or the event or the celebration that the cake is for.
This is a completely understandable sentiment. It's understandable why Jack wouldn't want to participate in a ceremony that he doesn't feel comfortable with, nor does he have any obligation to.
Do you feel as though you are forfeiting your own rights and being forced, in other words, to participate in their wedding by making a cake for them?
If that's what they would require, yeah, they would be taking away my rights to do what I do as a business owner and as an American citizen. And as a follower of Jesus Christ, I don't believe that that's what he wants me to do, and so I would, my priorities would be towards my faith rather than towards my safety or security.
So we've heard Mr. Phillips give his perspective on the issue. Now let's see what Kyle has to say.
Yes, you're the victim.
This man is having his business and livelihood threatened simply because he doesn't want to create art that depicts a message he disagrees with. I'm pretty sure that does make him a victim.
Not the poor people you were persecuting.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
Who was being persecuted and how? Jack Phillips wasn't persecuting anybody. At no point did Jack Phillips ever say that he hates gay people, or even that gay people aren't welcome at his business. He just doesn't want to make a cake for a same-sex wedding since that's not something he believes in. That's it. I mean, if anything, Jack Phillips is being persecuted since he's being targeted for his religious beliefs. I mean, y'all can't just leave the man alone and get your cake somewhere else.
Because of who they're attracted to naturally and what their sexual orientation is.
I doubt that Jack Phillips gives a shit who someone is attracted to or what their sexual orientation is. Jack Phillips doesn't have a "we don't serve gays" policy at his business. He just doesn't feel comfortable participating in same-sex weddings.
No, you are the victim.
Hey Kyle, if I came up to you with a gun and said you're going to provide service you don't want to against your will, you'd probably consider yourself a victim.
And of course you're a hero. Somehow you're a hero in this whole mess.
You guys are the ones who are making him seem like a hero. If these people would have simply just gotten their cake from a different bakery and didn't make such a fuss about it, then no one would probably give a rat's ass about Jack Phillips or his bakery.
And also, let's just be clear right off the bat here. He goes, oh yes, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. Well, really, that's interesting because, so you believe in Jesus, but you denied people service. Well, this is what Jesus had to say about gay marriage. So you don't even know what your Lord and Savior said. So on top of not understanding the law...
He actually understands the law pretty well, Kyle. Compelled speech is illegitimate as per the First Amendment. It's very simple.
You're also horribly ignorant about your own holy book and your own religion. Look, you can say, well, in Leviticus, in the Old Testament, there's a mention of it. Okay, then say that. Don't mention Jesus. He didn't say anything about gay marriage.
Even if that's true, so what? Religion is one of those things that's open to multiple interpretations. Mr. Phillips happens to have his interpretation of what his religion means, and it's no more or less valid than what your interpretation is, Kyle.
Now, there's so many things I want to get to. I love it when the lawyer says, if the government can force you to violate your beliefs, they can force you to do anything.
Well, yeah, Kyle, like I said before, if you decide that it's legitimate for the government to compel speech or servitude, then that opens up a whole Pandora's box of all sorts of tyranny. And the only reason Kyle doesn't see it that way is because this is a form of authoritarianism that's in line with his political beliefs. If the shoe was on the other foot, if this was a liberal business owner being forced to create conservative art, I have a feeling Kyle would feel much differently about the whole situation.
She's trying to frame it like it's tyranny to rule against him.
Well, by ruling against him, the government is essentially saying that it's legitimate to compel someone to perform labor against their will, which is the literal definition of slavery. So yes, in this case, the ruling would be a form of tyranny.
No. You know where the actual tyranny is? The tyranny is with the business.
No.
Yeah, no, a business can't be tyrannical because a business, by definition, operates on a completely voluntary basis. A business can't compel anyone to give them money or work with them. This is what makes a business different from a government, which can do those things.
If the business can do whatever they want to anybody who comes in the door...
Mr. Strawman, give me a break.
Nobody's arguing that a business should be able to do literally whatever it wants to anybody, for whatever reason they want. That's an argument that you made up, Kyle. What we're talking about here is a very specific issue. Should a business owner be forced by law to create art that depicts a message that they disagree with?
Or, in terms of their skin color...
Why does the left always feel the need to bring race into everything? We're not talking about skin color here. Skin color has nothing to do with anything involving this issue. It was never brought up by Jack Phillips or anyone.
In terms of their religious beliefs...
Hold on a second. You're saying that people have a right to be served regardless of their religious beliefs. But when it comes to Jack Phillips' religious beliefs, your whole attitude is fuck him. He should be forced against his will to act against his beliefs. So what? Some people have the right to have their religious beliefs protected and others don't? That seems pretty arbitrary.
In terms of their sexual orientation...
I don't get why this is so difficult to understand, but Jack Phillips most likely doesn't give a shit about anyone's sexual orientation. He doesn't refuse to serve gays at his business. The couple was perfectly free to buy any other product that the bakery offers. He just doesn't want to participate in same-sex marriages because it's not something that he believes in.
Then that would be tyranny. It would be tyranny from the businesses of everybody else in the population. But no, they flip the issue and they say, oh, it's the government who's oppressing poor little old me.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
No, seriously, this is legitimately one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Is Kyle seriously trying to argue that it's tyranny for the government not to force people to provide labor against their will? And how exactly is the business being tyrannical? They're not imposing anything onto anybody. It's not like the business is somehow stopping gay people from getting married, or stopping the couple from getting their cake made somewhere else. Like, yeah, the couple may have been mildly inconvenienced by having to get their cake made somewhere else, but I'd hardly call that tyranny.
And the other part that I love, this is random, he threw in there, I believe that what I do for a living, this is God's design for me. I mean, just think how highly absurd even that comment is. God cares that this random schmuck in the middle of Colorado is a baker? God doesn't have other things to care about? Like, oh, well, maybe the kids with leukemia, maybe all the hurricanes and tornadoes and natural disasters that destroyed people's homes and destroyed people's lives, maybe all the poverty and the hunger in third world nations, maybe the kids with the cleft lip like this and the kids with the distended guts in the middle of Africa. No, but he cares about you, of course, because you're so special. He cares about whether or not you're a fucking baker or a plumber.
Well, again, religion is one of those things that's highly open to interpretation. Jack Phillips has his interpretation of what his religion means to him, and it's no more or less valid than yours.
It shows how narcissistic these guys are. And their whole, when you hide behind religion like this, Bill Maher said it best. He said religion is narcissism parading as humility. They pretend like, oh, I'm so humble. This is why I kneel before my God. It's all about my religion, man. I'm so humble. But in reality, what is he really saying? Thank you, God, for making me so special and so great and, you know, making my life perfect the way that you drew it out and had a plan for me to be a fucking baker and make people cakes.
This seems like a case of the pot calling the kettle black. I mean, you're insisting that business owners be forced against their will to create art that's in line with your agenda, using the threat of violence of the state, no less, as if your beliefs and agenda and way of doing things are objectively the right one. I mean, that seems pretty narcissistic to me.
God doesn't care what you do, man. Now, the final thing here, the part probably that most got under my skin was when they talk about the law, like they know what they're talking about.
The lady is a lawyer. She spent years studying law. Her entire job, what she's literally paid to do, is understand the law. I'm pretty sure she, of all people, would know what she's talking about when it comes to the law.
And they even mention the Constitution. Well, here's a little part of the Constitution. Section 1 of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment says, quote, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Okay, so do you get that? In other words, you can't, if you're a business, somebody can't come in and you can't say, look, I don't like the color of your skin, get out. I'm not going to serve you. You're black. I'm not going to serve you. You're white. Whatever it is, can't do it. It's got to be equal protection under the laws. You know, somebody walks in, they're a Muslim. We don't serve your kind around here. Can't do it. Equal protection under the law.
So Kyle doesn't seem to understand what the Equal Protection Clause actually means. The Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution says that the government has to treat all people equally. It doesn't say anything about private businesses. The Constitution protects you from the government, not private businesses. It's the reason why a private social media company can curtail certain types of speech on its platform without running afoul of the First Amendment.
Somebody walks in and says, I'm gay, but I'd like a wedding cake. Well, I don't serve that. I don't do that because it doesn't fit with my beliefs. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are on this issue.
Actually, it does, because the First Amendment to the Constitution gives people the right to exercise what they believe, or in this case, not exercise what they don't believe.
It's a personal matter with them. You can't arbitrarily discriminate based on your personal preferences when somebody comes into your restaurant.
Yeah, they can. If someone owns a restaurant or any type of business for that matter, if it's their property, then yeah, they have a right to decide who can and can't access their property, just as they'd have that same right with any other property that they own. I mean, you do have the right to decide who can and can't be at your house for whatever reason you want. Why should a business be any different?
And think about the slippery slope that this sets up if this guy were to win the case and get his way.
There is no slippery slope. All it would mean is that free association and freedom of speech would be protected. The slippery slope is in the other direction. If the government can compel speech and servitude from people who are unwilling, then there's quite literally nothing the government can't compel you to do.
Then why can't I say, I open a business and somebody comes in and I see they got a Mitt Romney bumper sticker on their car and I say, hey, you know what, buddy? I don't like Republicans. I think they're idiots. Get the fuck out of my store. Then what would happen? Then would he, oh yes, of course, it's the business owner's personal belief system, yes. How dare you force him to act against his principles? We're just standing up for what's right here.
I agree that would be a pretty stupid reason to deny somebody service, but I would still defend their property rights, their freedom of speech and association, and say that should be allowed. That's the difference between you and me, Kyle. I stick by my principles even when they're not politically convenient for me.
No, 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 no. It's not about you. It's not about you.
Yes, it is, Kyle. If someone puts their blood, sweat, and tears into creating a business, then they have every right to run that business as they see fit. Nobody is owed the time, labor, or property of another person against their will. For a contract to be considered legitimate, both sides have to mutually agree.
If you want to set up a business, you have to abide by the rules and regulations and the laws.
And what makes that coercion legitimate? You do know that regulations and laws are just arbitrary words on paper created by politicians. They don't actually change what's right or wrong or what's moral. What gives the government these special supernatural powers to override the property rights of business owners?
And the Constitution...
Again, the Constitution is only there to restrain the power of the government. It doesn't say anything at all about private businesses,
which specifically forbids ridiculous things like this.
Quite the opposite, Kyle. The Constitution doesn't forbid people from exercising their freedom of religion or speech, it actually protects it. This is made very clear in the First Amendment. And forcing someone to create a piece of art that depicts a message they disagree with is 100% violating their free speech rights.
You're not a victim, man. You're a pathetic bigot.
And of course, because Kyle doesn't have an actual argument to make against Jack Phillips, he has to attack him personally, calling him a bigot and strawmanning him as someone who's against homosexuality, period, when he's really just against gay marriage. This needs reiterating, but Jack Phillips was perfectly willing to sell the couple any other product that the bakery offers. He just doesn't believe in same-sex marriage. And you keep having to skip over this fact because, well, you're being intellectually dishonest, Kyle. Until next time, this has been Philosophossum making stupidity play dead. Everyone take care.